Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 13 of Conscious Caregiver Conversations. I hope everyone is having a good week so far. Samantha is here to join us. All right, let's get Samantha.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, there she is. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm just got a little bit of a different setup here, so let me just get this hopefully in a correct position where you can see me. My head's a little bit cut off from where I'm standing, but I'm sure I can make it work a little bit. How are you this morning?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm good. We're in the middle of a heat wave at the moment, so just trying to cool off in the mornings before it gets ridiculously hot, but that's okay. It must be, is it getting warmer or is it still quite cool where you are?
So I was just going to say we are having the opposite. It is actually quite cool here. It's been in the 50s in the morning and just getting up to low 70s. I am really hoping that for next week it's a bit warmer because I have a friend coming into town and I'm going to be off work for the week to be able to celebrate my birthday. So,
Oh, yes.
yeah. So I'm very hopeful that things get a little bit warmer, smidge warmer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Well, the seasons go as they please, and I think that's always a good reminder. I always feel in the extreme weather conditions, it's like nature's reminder that we really can't control much, and we need to try and learn to go with the flow a little bit more. That's just my little insight.
Yes, well, it's really interesting because it's like yet again such this opposite perspective that I think is so neat about the fact that you and I are on literal opposite sides of the world, because growing up, I was always jealous of those people who had the summer birthdays and were able to spend it outside and in the pool. And so it's so funny because Samantha's birthday was actually January 8th. So happy belated birthday to Samantha.
Thank you.
My birthday is February 8th. But because we're on opposite sides of the world, it is warm where she is. And growing up, I know I've talked about this before, but I live in South Florida now. Up until about the age of 29 or so, I lived in Pennsylvania, which is quite cold this time of the year. So I always wanted to be able to have the pool party and go to the beach and all of these fun things that these summer birthdays get to do. And, Samantha and I, our birthdays are only a month apart, but the climate is so very different because of where we're each situated. And so Samantha has had that warm birthday, and I typically have not. And so certainly being down in South Florida, it is warmer than it is up in Pennsylvania. But I'm hoping it gets just a little bit warmer because I plan on being in my bathing suit, actually on Grand Bahama Island, enjoying my birthday at a resort where there is a pool and beach access and all the things. So hopefully it's just a smidge warmer because that is
Fingers
how I want to
crossed.
spend my birthday.
Well, my fingers are crossed for you, and 1 year you're going to come over here to Australia and have that warm summer birthday. So
Yes, 100%. 100%. Definitely coming to Australia for my birthday 1 year.
sounds good. Now, how has your week been, like work-wise and, I mean, work-wise?
Ups and downs. Ups and downs. Today
Yeah.
was actually a really good day, and I don't know why. And when I say that, I mean that I don't know if it was something different about my morning prayer or the energy that I came to just the space of my day and work with. As we've talked about in previous episodes, I do a prayer that is honestly very similar to when we cast a circle for these episodes and for other healing and conscious conversations. And I've basically just taken that prayer because there's a lot of energy healing in that prayer. There's a lot of upgrading and clearing of things in that prayer. And then sometimes towards the end, I'll add like my own little just conversation with God. And today I basically came to that prayer doing all of the usual things, all of the upgrades and the healings. But then before I closed out the prayer, I just kind of spoke about how I'm just really trying to surrender to whatever the Creator's will is, whatever I'm meant to do, however I'm meant to show up, whatever I'm confronted with throughout the day. I just surrender, allow me to be guided by him, allow me to be connected to the source energy and Christ consciousness that I'm innately gifted with, just because I am a soul, I am divinity in form. And something about the day has just gone really well. I've just really found myself surrendering, letting go, releasing, not getting caught up in all of the overwhelm of the things that I have to do and accomplish, which is a little crazy in all honesty, because I am taking next week off. So, I mean, not only do I want to kind of make sure I'm in a good space before I take off next week for my birthday, but it's already in the back of my mind that there's going to be all kinds of things that happen next week. And I'm going to come back to a ton of emails and projects and different things that I need to do come February 12th. But I'm just like feeling okay about life. And I don't know. I just think that I'm really trying to be in this space. And I was actually thinking about it as I was walking. My office is not located in the hospital. I'm sure I've mentioned that before. And so I have about a 5-minute walk from where our office suite is to the hospital. And in that time, I remember just kind of saying to myself, I am but one person and I can only do one thing at a time. And, I don't know what made me think of that. It had to have just been divine intervention. But I think that that was such a valuable reminder, not only for myself, but for everyone. We are one person, and within this human form, because, outside of this human form, we are capable of so much. But within this human form and within this human meat suit that we have chose to embody in this lifetime, we truly can only do one thing at a time. And I know in nursing, we talk a lot about multitasking, and we talk a lot about the ability to be able to do several things at one time, because it's often needed in order to take care of our patients. But we really have to take a moment to consider and really consciously think about what that means when we're multitasking and what it requires of us in terms of dividing our energy, dividing our thinking. And whenever we divide anything, whenever we separate it into parts, we're never giving all of ourselves or all of our thoughts or all of our energy to one thing. And there's just a whole lot of, when we can't focus all of our attention and energy into doing one thing, we're not going to give it all of what we're capable of, right? And so, obviously, again, when it comes to caregiving, and especially in the fields that I've worked in of critical care and ED, you have these competing priorities, and sometimes you do have to do the multitasking and you do have to consider many different things at one time. But whenever possible, even at the bedside, even on the front lines, it's really important that we take the time to center ourselves, because when the overwhelm and the stress sets in, it really inhibits our ability to think clearly and to direct our energy and focus our energy where we need to in order to give our patients the care that they deserve. And so there was just a whole lot of that coming in today. And I guess I really embraced it today, which, hallelujah, I need to do that more often, because I feel so much better and I have so much more energy. And when my energy isn't being siphoned by these thoughts that don't serve me, I'm able to do a better job at what I need to do, and I'm actually more productive.
Pretty much. And I think the key that one of the keys that you mentioned there as well is that we often talk about, like you and I talk about in conscious caregiving, slowing down, and that can seem almost impossible, especially in, on the floor nursing, crit care nursing, or any form of nursing really. But one of the ways to slow down is to become more intentional just in every activity and everything that you do. And one of the ways of doing that is not to be multitasking 50 million things at the same time, which I think is near opposite to what we're almost taught to do, especially more ward-based, but even in theatre where I am, even in ICU, ED, and even in leadership positions like you're in, Jenna, you can't just focus on one project, get it finished, then start another. Like it's not the way we can do it. But in each moment, we can be intentional in that task that we're doing.
Yeah.
Is that is kind of what you're saying as well, isn't it? Because I think it's very hard for people to sometimes wrap your head around slowing down, because it's so, like I said, that opposite feeling to what we're taught, what's necessary, and all that sort of stuff. So actually trying to break that down and explain what we mean by slowing down in every moment, and being intentional, being present in the task, in the moment, whatever you're doing at that time, even if you might have other things to then go on to or whatever. It's so easy for that to all slip into one and then form this like spaghetti of, needing to do all these different things. And then I have personally found that has led into my own personal life, where I used to be the queen of multitasking. And it was very, very stressful and energy leaking. And I was just tired and frazzled all the time. So it's a simple theory, I guess, but to actually put it in practice makes very tangible results.
Absolutely. And when you really think about the concept of multitasking, it's a bit of a misnomer, because there are certainly times where I have been in the middle of perhaps working on, a competency that I'm completing, and then something else comes up and my attention gets shifted to something else. And I find myself, perhaps bouncing between 2 or 3 different projects. But in truth, I'm really only able to focus on one thing at a time. How could I possibly be writing a competency and talking to somebody on the phone and helping them troubleshoot our learning management system at the same time? I simply can't. I have to do them separately. I can't do them together. And if you think about bedside nursing, it's really the same thing. How can you be, let's just say, administering one patient medications while also suctioning another patient? You can't. Or how can you, let's not even talk about 2 different patients, but you're in the middle of taking care of one patient. You can't simultaneously be administering somebody medications and also emptying their drain. So, so much of multitasking is really in here, but it's not actually physically possible. We can be thinking about, our little to-do list, but then we've got to start with number one, and we can't get to number two until we're done with number one. So it really is kind of like we talk about multitasking and we talk about, oh, in order to be a great nurse, you need to be able to multitask. But in truth, you have to get intentional, like Samantha and I have been saying. You have to slow down, like Samantha and I have been saying, and you have to say, okay, these are the 3 things that I need to do with this patient in this hour, and I'm going to start with number 1 or priority number 1 and go from there. And it's interesting because I certainly have been challenged with overwhelm, both at the bedside and in my current role as a nurse leader. And I work in education with a lot of nurses who are orienting and see them in their space of overwhelm, in their experience of overwhelm. And one of the things that I know would help them to navigate their circumstances is if they would take that time to slow down and center themselves. Because when you're in a space of overwhelm, you're out here and you need to be in here in order to be able to think clearly and to see things clearly and to see the tasks before you clearly and to be able to actually see your patient and what's going on with them clearly. You can't be out here. You have to be in here. But that takes the awareness and the recognition of what being out here feels like, about perhaps the pressure you feel in your head, about the chaos that you are experiencing, about the fact that you feel like you can't breathe, about the fact that everything just feels very tumultuous and you feel this turmoil and you can't focus. Those are awarenesses, those are symptoms that you can pick up on so that you can begin to have the awareness of, oh, this is my overwhelm experience. This is my stress experience. So that when you start noticing those symptoms that align with your overwhelm or your stress experience, you can then take the aligned action to say, okay, I need to sit for a hot minute and take some deep breaths and collect my thoughts. Because if you don't do that, you are not going to reset yourself. You're going to stay in that overwhelm experience. And what ends up happening in that overwhelm or stress experience is a whole lot of energy leaks, which is basically just a woo-woo way of saying you end up wasting a lot of time, you end up wasting a lot of energy running around in circles like a chicken with your head cut off because you haven't come back to center.
Pretty much. And that's where everything that we're teaching on is all linked, isn't it? Because it is like a spiral effect that happens. And when we talk about some of the perhaps more woo-woo concepts or whatever it might be, that's what's really at the root of a lot of these things, but they show off as so many different types of symptoms as such of, overwhelm and being stressed and frazzled and having no energy, and constant. So I'd just like to point that out, that sometimes we talk about, sorry, my daughter's coming in. You take over, Jenna, but I'm sure you get what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I think we've talked about a really important concept here that I would really almost like to just pause it at this point and say that, I think this is a really good space for this episode. If I had to almost give homework, if you will, what I want people to take from this episode and start to look at within themselves is take some time, and it doesn't have to be obviously while you're at work, but take some time when you have a moment to yourself to reflect on what your overwhelm experience looks like, feels like, etc. How do you feel in your body? Start to identify those symptoms so that you can start to gain the awareness. Because once you can gain the awareness, you can start to take the aligned action. Because that is part of the challenge. We are not aware. And if we are not aware of, oh my goodness, I'm starting to go into this experience of overwhelm or this experience of stress, we can't then start to take the aligned action to shift it. So really take some time to journal, take some time to pray or meditate over what does overwhelm or stress feel like to me and how does it show up, so that we can begin to really develop this awareness around it. And then once you have that, you can start to call that time out. I call it calling a time out on yourself to do a take two. And the take two is where you stop yourself, time out, so that you can sit down, take some slow, deep breaths, and collect yourself. Bring yourself back into your body. So I really, honestly, I think that is like a great place to leave our conversation, because I have truly found in my own experience that so much of my work-related stress and perhaps even my work-related unhappiness or dissatisfaction or unfulfillment is because I get into this overwhelm or this stress experience and I miss the symptoms. I lack the awareness, first of all, and then I don't take the aligned action. So the first step is developing that awareness, and that's like my homework for our audience is take some time over the next week or 2 weeks, because unfortunately, unless Samantha's available next Wednesday, I will not be. So take the next week or 2 weeks to allow yourself, and it doesn't have to be for hours, it can be for 10 minutes, to really sit and reflect on and journal on what does my overwhelm / stress experience look like, feel like, etc. And then start to notice it when you're at work. Because once you start to really notice it, then you start to take the aligned action towards shifting it.
Yeah, definitely. And there's some really, that's what I was writing down on the side here, because that's some really key points there, and something that is almost perhaps simple, like I said, in theory, but to actually put it in practice takes practice. And that's why journaling and having a mentor and having a coach, having a trusted colleague is really good to keep up these practices, so that you can really become aware and know in your body what overwhelm, because there's common things we can feel, but what it actually feels like for you. Because I know I stop eating well, I stop sleeping well, and I get triggered really easily. They're my 3 big things that means I'm on the road to burnout and, overwhelm and stress and all that sort of thing. So you're so right there, Jenna. Becoming aware is really key, because you can't do anything without having that awareness. So that's beautiful homework. I love that. I think we're up to episode 13 or something, and now we finally do homework, which is good.
Yes. Lucky number 13. We are there. So, thank you to everybody that tunes in. Thank you to everybody who watches the replays, who shares our content. Just please continue to like and share. And, this truly speaks to our hearts, in terms of our colleagues, especially those on the front lines, at the bedside, busting their behinds every single day and night to take excellent care of patients. I think the majority of us all go into this profession because we care about helping people. And, this information is crucial to preventing burnout because healthcare is a tough profession to be in. And so much of what we talk about here has allowed Samantha and I to continue doing what we do in a really challenging, fast-paced environment, and just doing it to the best of our ability, giving ourselves grace every step of the way. But these practices will sustain you in a way that the typical self-care, self-help junk that we're so used to hearing just doesn't. I'm telling you, as somebody who has been in the profession for over a decade, Samantha too, we've heard it all, just as you have, but we finally found something that really speaks to us and really works. It really works. It's not always easy, but as you become more and more practiced in these methods and in this approach, it just will make a profound difference, truly.
It really will. And as we finish off, I will hop on next week, but probably not at this time. It's not the best time for me with my children, but I will hop on some lives. So make sure that you're following Sammy Conscious Caregiver as well as Jenna Corelli, so that you get, whenever we do pop on and share bits and pieces. I know, Jenna, you do quite a bit on your stories as well. And also happy birthday for you for next week as well. I really hope the weather warms up a touch to give you that break, because taking breaks and taking that time for ourselves is also what we bang on about in these conversations as well. So that's very important too.
Yes, and this is a very exciting year. I turn 40 next Thursday. So we're entering a new chapter, a new decade. It is all about being 40, fresh and fabulous. And there's something really exciting about entering a new decade. It's a whole nother 10-year story that I get to write. And I'm excited to author that story and have some really profound and exciting things happen. So yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Beautiful. You take care.
You too.
We'll catch up in 2 weeks then.
Yes, absolutely. I will see you then.